Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something pretty fundamental: clean drinking water and sanitation, access to both.
It's a huge deal, right? A basic human right,
Yeah,
and it's central to things like the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
exactly, the SDGs. They're aiming for everyone to have access by 2030, kind of building on the earlier Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs.
Yeah, those ran from about 1990 to 2015.
Right, but here's the thing that got us curious, the puzzle, really. During that MDG time, some countries just surged ahead, made amazing progress on water and sanitation.
While others just didn't. They seemed kind of stuck.
Yeah, stuck. So what makes the difference? What separates the success stories from, well, the stagnation?
Your first thought might be money, right? Or maybe natural resources.
Totally. You'd assume wealthier countries do better, but the reality might be a bit more complicated.
That's exactly what this really interesting study dug into. It was done by Jeanne and Jamie Bartram. They're from the Water Institute at the University of North Carolina. And they hit this key problem right away. How do you even compare progress fairly?
What do you mean, like different starting points?
Precisely. Think about it. A country going from, say, 10% of people having access to 20%. That's a doubling.
Huge percentage jump, yeah.
But then you have another country that's already at 90% access, and they managed to push it to 95%.
Okay, smaller percentage increase, but getting those last few percent must be incredibly tough.
It really is. So just looking at the percentage increase isn't really fair. It doesn't capture the effort involved, especially near the top.
So how did they solve that, the study you mentioned?
This is where it gets clever. They came up with something called a normalized rate of change.
Normalized rate of change. Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. Basically, instead of just looking at the raw percentage points gained, it measures how much progress a country actually made compared to the maximum possible progress it could have made, given where it started.
Okay, so it accounts for that difficulty curve we talked about.
Exactly. It puts every country onto the same scale, running from level 1, which means things actually got worse.
Access decreased.
Yes, significantly. All the way up to +1, which means a country achieved the absolute fastest rate of improvement possible for its starting level.
Got it. So a country starting low has a different maximum possible speed than one starting high, but this scale lets you compare their effort or effectiveness fairly.
You've got it. It levels the playing field for comparison. And they applied this to 73 countries, looking at the period between 2000 and 2012.
And where did they get the data for all this? Must have needed solid numbers.
Oh, absolutely. They use really robust data from national household surveys. It was all compiled by the WANICEF Joint Monitoring Program for Water Supply and Sanitation, the JMP.
Yes, the JMP data is sort of the gold standard for this.
It is. And they used the data spanning 2000 to 2012. One small technical point, they decided to include shared toilets in their definition of improved sanitation for consistency across the data from that period, which differs slightly from how the JMP categorizes it now.
Okay, good to know. So our mission today really is to unpack what they found using this normalized rate, because the findings, well, they definitely challenge some common ideas.
They really do. Let's get into it.
So they've got this fair way to measure progress now. The next logical step is to see what drives it, right?
Right. So they looked at all the usual suspects, the factors you'd expect to matter.
Like what? Money, I assume.
Yep. Gross national income per capita, basically. How wealthy a country is. That was top of the list.
Okay. What else?
Things like government effectiveness, how well the government actually functions, delivers services.
Makes sense.
Also, official development assistance, foreign aid, specifically targeted at water and sanitation.
The aid question, always important.
Definitely. And natural resources specifically, renewable internal freshwater resources per person. Does having more water readily available help?
You'd think so. Anything else on the social side?
Yes, quite a bit. They looked at female education, the percentage of women over 25 with secondary schooling.
Okay, a measure of social development.
Exactly. And poverty levels, the percentage living on less than $1.25 a day. Also, income inequality, using the Gini coefficient.
Lower Gini means more equality, right?
Correct. And they also included child mortality rates for under 5s and the overall Human Development Index, the HDI.
Wow, that's a lot of factors. Very comprehensive.
It really is. And they didn't just throw them all into the mix randomly. They used proper statistical techniques like principal component analysis.
Why was that important?
Well, it helps make sure you're not just measuring the same underlying thing multiple times with different labels.
Yeah.
Like wealth and HDI are related, obviously.
Yeah.
This helps identify the core independent factors.
Right, methodological rigor. Okay, so they have the progress measure, they have all these potential drivers lined up and analyzed carefully. What did they find? This is the core of it, isn't it?
This is the absolute kicker. After all that work,
hmm
they found no correlation.
Wait, no correlation between progress and any of those 9 indicators.
None. Statistically speaking, there was no link between a country's normalized rate of progress in water and sanitation and its wealth, or its government effectiveness, or the amount of aid it got, or its freshwater resources, or education levels, or poverty, or inequality. None of them.
That's genuinely surprising. So a rich country wasn't necessarily more likely to make faster progress than a poorer one.
According to this analysis, no. The data just didn't show that connection.
And it wasn't just the individual factors, but even the combined ones they identified through that analysis.
Correct. Even the underlying components derived from those indicators didn't correlate with the normalized rate of progress.
Wow. Okay. Did most countries actually make any progress, though, or was it just flat everywhere?
Oh no, most countries did improve access to some extent, that's important, but the study highlighted that only about a third of the 73 countries actually managed to achieve progress that was at least half of their maximum potential.
So only a third were really hitting their strides, so to speak, based on this measure.
Pretty much. A normalized rate over zero point 0.5 was achieved by only about a third of them.
Can you give us an example? Sometimes specific countries make it clear.
Absolutely. The study uses Peru and Paraguay as a really good illustration.
Okay, Peru and Paraguay. What would you expect based on the usual factors?
Well, you probably bet on Peru, right?
Mhm.
It had a higher GNI per capita, so it was wealthier. It received more foreign aid for water and sanitation, and it had significantly more renewable freshwater resources per person.
Okay, so on paper, Peru looks set up for better progress.
Exactly. But the study's findings flipped that expectation.
What happened?
Paraguay actually made pretty decent progress in sanitation coverage during that time. Their normalized rate was 0.42.
Okay, respectable. And Peru?
Peru made basically no significant progress at all in sanitation. Its normalized rate was just 0.05. Barely moved the needle.
Despite having more money, more aid, more water resources.
Yep. It really drives home the point that those socioeconomic factors weren't predicting the actual outcomes in terms of progress.
And what about the foreign aid point specifically? Because that often comes up, just send more aid.
Yeah, the study looked directly at official development assistance for water and sanitation and found no correlation with progress either.
Hmm.
And that actually lines up with some other research, too. It suggests that just, pouring money in, whether it's aid or even national wealth, isn't automatically the answer. It might not be enough on its own.
So if it's not about the money or the resources or even how generally effective the government is rated, what could be driving progress? What did the authors suggest?
Well, they didn't pinpoint the exact alternative drivers definitively in this study, but they strongly suggested where we should probably be looking.
Which is where?
Towards things like specific government policies focused on water and sanitation. And maybe even more importantly, the institutional commitment and capacity to actually implement those policies effectively, consistently on the ground.
So it's less about having resources and more about the political will and the machinery to actually do something specific with them.
That seems to be the implication. Is there dedicated focus? Are the institutions capable of delivering? It shifts the focus from just socioeconomic status to perhaps governance in action, how things are actually done.
That makes a lot of sense. It feels like it could explain why some countries punch above their weight, so to speak, and others lag behind despite apparent advantages.
It could, yeah. And this normalized rate itself, the tool they developed, it seems pretty useful beyond just this one piece of research.
How so?
Well, think about it from a policymaker's perspective. It gives you a much fairer way to compare how countries are doing, to see who's making real strides relative to their potential.
Right, for learning from successes, maybe.
Exactly. It supports evidence-based decisions, and it aligns really well with that human rights idea of progressive realization, the expectation that countries should be continuously improving access over time.
So it's a benchmark.
A benchmark, yeah, a way to track real progress objectively. The authors even suggested it could be used in other areas, like health. Imagine using it to compare improvements in maternal mortality rates fairly across countries, with different starting points.
That could be powerful, standardizing how we measure improvement itself.
Potentially, yes.
Now, we should probably also touch on limitations. Every study has them, right? It helps us understand the findings in context.
Absolutely. Critical thinking is key. The authors were upfront about several points.
Like what?
Well, for one, they used a linear model for the rate of change. Progress in the real world might not always be a straight line. It could speed up or slow down in phases.
Okay, so it's a model, an approximation.
Right. Also, remember the data comes from household surveys.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great, but they don't typically capture access to water and sanitation outside the home, like in schools, health clinics, or workplaces. So it's not the full societal picture.
Good point. What else?
The definition of improved services is quite broad in these surveys.
You mentioned that with the shared toilets earlier.
Yeah, and even beyond that, like
Yeah.
an improved water source could be anything from a tap in the house to a protected community hand pump miles away.
Big difference in service level.
Huge difference. Same for sanitation. A basic pit latrine gets counted alongside a connection to a city sewer. The quality or level of service isn't really differentiated.
So it measures access, but maybe not the quality of that access.
Not in detail, no. And related to that, national averages from surveys can hide big inequalities.
Like between urban and rural, or rich and poor,
Yeah,
or marginalized groups.
exactly. Vulnerable groups often have much worse access than the national average suggests, and these surveys might not fully capture that disparity.
Okay. And one last thing.
Just that the socioeconomic data, all those indicators like GNI and education, they mostly use data from a single year around the middle of the study period, or the closest available year.
Not continuous data for the whole 2000-2012 period.
No, which means it's more of a snapshot. It might not perfectly reflect, say, investments made over time, especially smaller cumulative investments made by households themselves.
Got it. So important caveats, but they don't necessarily overturn the main finding about the lack of correlation with those big socioeconomic factors.
No, I think the core finding still stands as a really significant challenge to conventional thinking.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The big takeaway from this deep dive, the really striking insight, is that improving access to water and sanitation doesn't seem to be simply a function of how rich a country is, or how much aid it gets, or even its natural water resources.
Yeah, those things we usually point to. The data here says they aren't the main drivers of progress.
Which really challenges how we often think about development, doesn't it?
It does. It pushes us to look beyond those standard economic indicators.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If the usual suspects, money, resources, aid, don't fully explain why some countries succeed and others falter in providing these basic rights, what does?
What are those other factors? Maybe less tangible things.
Exactly. Could it be more about political leadership, the sheer will to prioritize this? Or maybe how effective local institutions are on the ground, or how much communities themselves are involved. Maybe even cultural attitudes toward sanitation play a role.
These hidden engines of progress, perhaps.
Yeah. And if that's true for water and sanitation, what might it mean for how we tackle other massive global challenges? Issues where just throwing resources at the problem haven't been the magic bullet we hoped for.
It suggests we need to look deeper, maybe, at governance, at implementation, at the human factors.
Something to definitely think about.